What is up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic podcast. Are you tired of being average, ordinary, every day? You're in luck. Today we're going to talk about how not to be average. I'm Danny from my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Here, Danny.
You ever struggle with average or being average?
Uh, yeah, yeah, and no, and yeah, and no. It's kind of almost like
Yes and
you
no,
can
the
be
classic
average.
uncommitted answer.
Depends. Yeah, it's one of those things where, some areas I'm average, some areas not average, and that's the way it goes. And I think it comes down to like finding which areas it's important for me to not be average.
That's a good response. I like that. Because it's hard too. It's like, what is average? Is it like just simply conforming? Because I think at some point we all were, right? Because we all like wanted to, make our parents happy or impress the people around us and all, and that's leads to, I think averageness, but like, yeah.
Well, that's a
So,
great. I mean, that's a great point. You got to define average because it's going to be a bell curve, and it's like,
yeah.
what deviation on that bell curve is it? Is it 65%? Is it 75%? 85%? Because that's going to define some people's average and some people's outliers.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
Mhm.
hopefully today we each have some tips that'll help you like find that point where you can be on the outside and not average, not in that bell. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go first. My first one is actually something I've mentioned a lot, but explore your hobbies because I think this is where a lot of times like our uniqueness lies. It's like our passions, the things we're really interested in that we don't care about whether we're gonna like make anything from, but it allows us just to be ourselves, explore our capacities, our abilities, what we're capable of in like a way that's like I think just better for us. And I think the more you do that, the more likely you are to like find out things that you can do that you just didn't know about and that other people can, or that make you different or unique and different ways of just seeing the world.
That one is a great one because they say you should follow your gift. Like a lot of people go after, a career or a dream or all these things, but really they say you should follow your gift, which is the thing you do better than anyone else with the least amount of effort. And oftentimes that correlates with hobbies, like things that you just
Yeah.
time disappears when you're doing it. And if you end up doing that stuff, you have a better than average chance of being not average.
Right? That's
I
good.
know, right? So, my first one for how to not be average is uh, don't try so hard to not be average. So, you don't want to be a try hard. Because here's the
Yeah.
thing, like everybody, I have this person that I know who is like the epitome of wanting to be not average, and he is the most average person ever. He's like stuck in the corporate grind, stuck in the rat race because he's so concerned with being not average that he just does everything that everyone else does. And he blames it on external things. He blames it on the
Yeah.
corporate structures, the bureaucracy, the time, the commitments, all these things. And it's like he tries so hard to not be average that he's just completely 100% average.
I'm glad you mentioned that because like I know some people too who like try so hard and like they do things that would seem to be outlying, but they don't realize like they're still buying products and stuff. So they're still just being like they're letting that stuff define them because they think it makes them different. But it's just you're making yourself into one of those people that has that stuff, and they're like classic examples. You know what I mean? It's really funny. Good example is like that Supreme stuff, like the street stuff or whatever they call it. I forget what it's called, but
Yeah, Supreme.
streetwear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like all that stuff, and it's like, well, that's just people who like that stuff then. It's not different, you know? It
Bingo.
is funny. But yeah, I think you're right. Like trying too hard, whenever you do that, you end up just falling into it, right? It's like a common fallacy where you end up being the
Mhm.
thing you don't want to be. My next one is ask whether you want to, not what others think. And this is kind of just what we've been talking about. Like I think most of us, our averageness is a lot of times connected to social pressure, social norms, all this outside sort of external stuff that we think, should kind of guide or dictates our actions instead of letting ourselves choose and doing what we want to. We listen to other people and then we just become what they think is a good life or what they think is a good person rather than being ourselves.
That's a great one because you got to find out if you even want to be not average. Because guess what?
Yeah.
It may suck. Like it may be
Yeah.
really bit like I see it so much in like the business and finance world where everybody gets their rocks off about being an entrepreneur, getting to say they're an entrepreneur
Oh,
or
dude.
saying they're a CEO of a company that's made $3 online. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's really just like an ego trip for a lot of people. And you have to figure like is it that important for you? Is this something being an entrepreneur is a lot of freaking work. Is this something that you actually want? Or would you prefer to be average? Because we need a lot of people to work in the workforce, like to
Yeah.
just punch the clock 9 to 5. Yeah. So
Or on top of that too, you don't even have to, I think even if you do something like just normal every day in work, you can be extraordinary in other areas too, though. That's the other side of it too, I think. It
mhm,
doesn't have to be just defined one way also. Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. So my second tip for how not to be average is ditch social media. This is something if you want the quickest road to mediocrity,
Yeah.
stay up to date on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything like that. That will 100% get you inundated with mediocrity. Not only that, but I think the biggest thing out there right now is people don't realize that all of these social media platforms, all the opinion is just manipulated by some state-sponsored sock puppet accounts. Like there are legitimate state-sponsored organizations that have large groups of people just doing these things to manipulate public opinion. And people think they're like free thinkers, they're connecting with people, they're doing whatever. And really, if you want to be not average, you got to ditch social media.
That is, that's an important one too, and you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like the major goal of that is influencing opinion. If your opinion's being influenced, you're being average. I mean, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much it, right? Because you're falling in with a crowd. Whatever that crowd is, you're falling in with it. And like, yes, I know people always like to tout like all the benefit, like connecting with people or like there's groups, and there are some groups that are very good and helpful to people, but like, yeah, by and large, you should just ditch it because like the scrolling
You'd
stuff is
probably
just
be better
gonna,
off with the real life in person group
yeah,
or a little bit time away from your phone.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good one though. My last one, and this I think I brought this up 'cause for the importance of like what you mentioned before, how hard it is to not be average, is create your own values. And the reason I mention this is like Nietzsche talks about this all the time, and but he also talks about how difficult it is because it means standing by yourself. Like it's a lot of times like it's very easy to go with the crowd because we can say like, oh, they're doing that, that validates my values, that validates what I believe, right? To be unique, you have to have your own values, your own viewpoint, and that means standing by yourself, and it's very, very hard. So like keep that in mind. So if you really want to be not average, create your own values, create your own way of looking at the world. Be honest with yourself, but recognize that it's very challenging also.
That's a great one because values are something that you're never going to get them perfectly, but also they can't be taken away from you. I watched this talk on gratitude the other day, and the guy was saying how, he has a list of 66 things or whatever that he's grateful for that he keeps on an index card in his pocket because he can't remember them all at
Yeah,
once, but he can take out the card and he can see them. And I
exactly.
was surprised that most of the things on the list were what we would consider like virtues or values or different things like that. It was like love, it was integrity, it was, I don't know, all these different things like self-esteem, self-respect, these types of things. Because after he shared that, somebody else shared how they thought they had everything. They were the multi-millionaire CEO. They had the cars they wanted. They had the multiple relationships with different women that they thought was very important. They had the esteem of all their colleagues. And then COVID hit and everything collapsed and they lost everything. And while they were sailing on the cloud, they had this gratitude list that's like, thank you for the cars. Thank you for the
Yeah.
relationships. Thank you for this. And
All the
then he
stuff.
lost it all. And he had the most incredibly difficult time being grateful for anything. But if instead you had these other things, these values, like you were just talking about, then you know, you still have love. It may be a lot smaller now because you just have to focus on trying to love yourself instead of loving these four other girls, but you still have love and you still have like that little glimmer of it. Yeah.
You know, that's a good point that you mentioned too, because I think that's a big part of it is like, if you are grateful for like values, you have these values, they can't be taken away. And you're gonna weather any storm that you face because of fortune or misfortune way better. And I think that's what Aristotle thought, right? It's balance. So the Stoics thought you have a balance in your life, and I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bingo. So my last one for how not to be average is make a morning routine and stick to it. You want to know what mediocre people do? Their alarm clock goes up, they run out of the house and go to work. That's it. That's their morning routine. And if you win the morning, you win the day. If you lose the morning, you
Yeah.
lose the day. And essentially your life too, because the days
Yeah.
add up into life. But so like this morning routine, it's so essential. I know that both of us, like since we have implemented morning routines, they've made a night
Oh,
and day of difference.
yeah.
But here's the thing: it needs to be something that you can do every day for the rest of your life. We're not doing this like heroic. I'm going to go to the gym for 4 hours and I'm going to wake up
No.
at 3:30 in the morning. Normally I wake up at 9. I'm going to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm going to
Yeah.
take a cold shower. I'm going to go to the gym for 4 hours. I'm going to eat egg whites. That's it, and a bunch of greens, kale, and egg whites, and it's like you're setting yourself up for failure. You know, find out what stuff like start experimenting. If you don't know what to add to your morning routine, try something. If it makes you feel better, do more of it. If it doesn't make you feel better, don't do more of it, and just keep on doing it. Because
No.
oh
Oh, good. Yeah,
yeah,
good.
because you get to benefit from the compound effect. So just
Yeah.
doing a little bit every day adds up immensely over your life.
No, I was going to say too, and what I like about what you said too is it can change too as your life changes. Like I'll give you a good example. Like before I had the dog, I didn't do a walk every day, and I obviously didn't spend time with the dog every morning. Now that I have the dog, I do. I wake up, I write, have coffee, go for a walk, which is all. I've actually am super happy I've included that, and like that's my routine now. It goes really well though.
That's true.
But things,
When you were just saying, when you
yeah,
were just saying that, I was like, you were saying like before I had the dog, I didn't walk the dog every morning, and I just imagined this guy like I think at Disney World they have
oh
this like dog leash that's an invisible dog. I was like imagining you walking around the neighborhood with that thing before you got a
yeah.
dog, just like out for a walk, going for a walk.
Well, no, it was nice. It was like I always walked, but this like actually committed me to doing it every day in the morning, regardless of the weather. And to be honest, like I love it, and I'm really
Mm,
glad I started doing it. But that was a change that was like necessitated by other circumstances. But yeah. But my
mm,
routine's not difficult. It's easy to do. It's not a hard one,
mm-hmm.
but it's something that I do every morning, so I know how my day starts. I always have
Yeah.
that consistency.
Yeah, like I've heard a whole bunch of people talk about it, and I just recently read it again in one of Martha Beck's book, but she talks about these like little turtle steps, making them so small that you can't fail. And
Yeah,
and that's helpful because like you may not see it, but a minute a day is still 6 hours over a year.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Not to mention too, every time I've tried to make like everybody else, like New Year's resolutions and stuff, they fail after a few weeks because they're always way too grand, way too much change, and they're not really something I can literally do every day. And that's usually the problem, you know?
mhm.
But there you have it. That was a good one to end on. How not to be average. Hopefully these tips will help you find yourself, be unique, or just, figure out what average is for you and whether you even want it. The Existential Stoic podcast will be back later this week with a full-length episode. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And until then, I'm Danny. Later, Randy.
Later, Danny.